Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf.
This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Today's show is brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Kia, Hyundai, the best in new inventory with great warranties. Great pre-owned inventory with the Sunbury Motors guarantee and a fabulous service department that backs it up every step of the way. That way, when it comes time to trade in for your next SMC vehicle, your vehicle's in great shape. It's all at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors, Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. It's been far too long since we've had this guy on. That's Nate Bauer, on3.com, and Blue White Illustrated. Far too long. Sorry about just missing out in the Ryder Cup, but it's great you're with us.
Hey, you know what? That helps ease the pain. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I thought it might. So 4 games. You always have the thrill of watching the in-game conversation with fans.
Yeah.
You know, so the ups and downs that go with that.
Yes. Yeah.
How entertaining is that?
Oh, boy. I don't know if entertaining is the right word. Look, it's certainly cooler heads always prevail, after the fact. I think that in games, it's funny because it does feel like this team is somewhere in between, right? After games, it feels like, just given the nature of every game they've played, realistically, you're talking about a team that's winning games by 20 points this year, like on average. I mean, it really has not been close, any of the final scores that Penn State has had this season. So the feeling right now is very much of exuberance, right? I mean, this Penn State team can beat anybody. They're right. They're ready for Ohio State. They're ready for Michigan, and that's fine. But what an in-game spread shows is, look, there are things, right? That they're like, this is not an infallible defense.
Sure.
They do have areas, and nobody is, right? I mean, that's the whole thing. Is
right.
Drew Aller didn't have a great first half, certainly at Illinois, right? The offense wasn't really clicking. The offense in the first half against Iowa. There's lots of stuff out there in both directions, but what it gives you a perspective on is it usually is somewhere in the middle, and I think that's the case with this team.
All right, so now they've gone through 4 games. Let's do this in a general big picture. Where is this team better through 4 games, and where do you still have a question or two after 4 games?
Okay. Where is it better? I think that, honestly, it's more mature and patient offensively than I would have anticipated. I genuinely think that one of the harder things to do in college football is have a quarterback who will live with and thrive on taking 8-yard pass completions, right? It's just that's why defenses do it in college football. That's why defenses will give you some of those throws. So the fact that Drew Aller has been able to do that, the fact that Nick Singleton and Katron Allen have been, mature about this, right? The situation where they're not getting the looks that they were getting previously. I did it. I think it was last week. I equated it to, remember when Barry Bonds was hitting 70 home runs a year, and the entire conversation about his 70 home runs was that not only was he hitting 70 home runs, but he did it effectively on one pitch a game.
Right.
Like there was one pitch a game that he was going to see that he might be able to do something with. And in a lot of ways, that feels apt for what Katron and Nick are seeing. Right? They're seeing defenses that are not going to let them do what they do. And so there has been a learning curve there that I'm not sure that either of them has really mastered at this point, but they're sticking with it, and it's fine. Look, there are absolute positives on the offensive side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball. I just think that if they can have that combination of the defensive ends creating pressure and the cornerbacks shutting down receivers, like that's it's a deadly combination, because you're going to get one or the other, right? James Franklin said it the other week. You're either going to get sacks or you're going to get turnovers. Sometimes you're going to get both, but so far they've been really, really effective at pressuring the quarterback, maybe not always coming up with sacks, but those pressures turning into turnover opportunities.
We saw Drew Aller last year going in 10 of the 13 games. And, the situation allowed him to get in. Now you're seeing him full-time at the spot. Watching him full-time, what do you see?
I see a sophomore quarterback who has unlimited potential, honestly. Like, I do think it's important to keep it in perspective, right? Because I think that there is a tendency with him specifically to lose perspective. Not that he loses perspective, that fans' perception of him loses perspective. And so I do think it's important to say, okay, he's it's not that he makes mistakes, it's that he's not going to be Superman all the time. Is there potential for him to become that? Absolutely. But it seems very clear to me, and I'd actually be interested in hearing your thoughts on this. Penn State and Mike Yurcich have said, hey, man, we're going to make this real easy for you. You just do not give the ball away, right? Don't take the throw that is sexy and you might want to make because it's so appealing. Right, just take what's in front of you, because you are going to have that. You're going to get that based on the respect that all of these defenses have for Singleton and Allen. So, you've given him the car keys, and he is a very, very fast sports car, but he's driving it instead of like a 16-year-old. He's driving it like a 40-year-old, right? The guy who's been there, a guy who's done this, and I do think that with that combination of maturity and his physical ability, it really, really bodes well for him moving forward.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying, and that is it's overall defenses make certain bets as to what they will concede and what they won't, and to this point, you look at most of the defenses Penn State has played, they don't want to concede the big play.
Yep.
So they want to stack the box. They want to take away as much of the running game as they can. But when you throw the ball, and here's a good example with Iowa, if you can somehow bait them with a double move, bang, bang, and then get past them, okay, now you've got it. Well, they did that a couple of times. And guess what Iowa didn't do? They just kept backing up because Iowa's philosophy is everything's underneath. And I think Mike, in combination with Drew, they've done a good job to this point of taking what a defense has given them and not forcing it into a situation that could be bad.
Yeah, 100%. That is exactly the view that I see, and to their credit, right? To be honest with you, even to James Franklin's credit, this is a guy who believes firmly in the notion of explosive plays dictating outcomes of games. And, right, I mean, that has been a core tenet of what he's brought to Penn State over the last 10 years. He has, I mean, as a younger guy, it's hard to say this, but I feel like he's matured in understanding and grasping and embracing really the notion that, hey, this is a team built to be defended the way that it currently is, and the way to beat those defenses is to just relax, right? Just grind it out. What he said about the halftime conversation to Yurcich on Saturday. Don't get bored. Just stick with it, because this is the way. This is the blueprint. blueprint that you're going to have to beat these types of defenses. And then on the back side of it, he knows, and I think I know, and I think you know, that this is also a team that can and will be explosive when the opportunity presents itself. It's just a matter of when that opportunity is going to come, because at some point it's going to flip. Right? Teams are going to get tired of this, of getting grounded and pounded to death. They're going to be willing to take more chances on the back end, and then we're going to see what happens.
Which then brings me to one of Drew's skill sets happens to be the strong arm in combination with the accuracy. The ball gets out there quicker. What has that done to Penn State's, quote, quick game, and also when they decide to go with the flanker screen game, the bubble screen game, because of how quickly he gets the ball out?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's really important for them to, and they have done it, intermittently, but getting the ball to some of those playmakers in space. Franklin talked about it yesterday, about not necessarily, right, stopping the perception that chunk plays in the passing game can only occur by throwing the ball 50 yards downfield. That perception has to stop. It needs to change and evolve to where people understand, like, it's on Keandre, right? It's on Trey. It is on Liam, right? That, like, you have receivers. Nick Singleton. Look at the most. I mean, I don't know if you agree with this, but the most effective Nick's been this year is catching the ball out of the backfield.
That's right.
Right. All of his big plays, and I'm using big, comparatively speaking to what he's done previously, but the biggest plays that he's had this season have all been through the passing game and getting him the ball in space. So, I think that there is a lot there for Penn State to work with moving forward, and this. I always hesitate around this conversation because I know that it either seems smart or very, very silly. But I do think that there's a certain extent of them holding some things back to this point in the season, right? They have not had to test themselves really offensively at all. And so I right, in terms of some of the creativity, some of the different things that I believe they have the capability of doing, I don't think we've really seen all that much of it or to the extent that they're capable.
Which then brings us to the defense, which was on the field a total of 14 and a half minutes on Saturday night. I mean, that's almost stunning. But what are you seeing, not just with the first group, because to me they rotate in so many players. To me personally, they're all starters. What are you seeing in terms of the cohesion of this defense as to how they play, whether it's the front seven or the back group, whatever?
Yeah. No, well, look, this is where it gets funny because they're doing what Penn State defenses have done under Franklin and really dating back before that, which is they stop the run, right? Nobody's running on them. And so by stopping the run, whether that's right the front four, whether that is the linebackers and Kobe King and Abdul, right, however you want to put it, they are putting opponents who, let's give the counterbalance here and be totally clear. These offenses stink. Right? Iowa's offense is not good. Illinois' offense is not good. Now, do they have some players? Yes. But on the whole, these are not good offenses that they've been facing so far this season. So it will change. There will be tougher matchups for these guys moving forward. But critically, in my opinion, they are managing to stop the run against teams that like to run and then forcing them to pass against teams that can't pass. They don't have passing games. The quarterbacks aren't equipped for it. They don't have the receivers for it. And so that's where you're seeing this manifestation of turnovers created, fumble, sacks, you name it, that all of that stuff is becoming such a fixture because they're forcing all of these teams into third and long situations, and they're doing that by stopping the run.
Right. So we're not going to send this tape to Iowa to use for season ticket renewals?
You know what? If you want to, that's fine. Look, I don't know. I have the Big Ten in general, right, just has this very strange embrace of offensive football. And when I say strange, I mean they don't. Right? You've got so many programs that I'm not going to say don't care, but they believe firmly in this notion that you can do what Penn State is doing right now, right? But they don't have the threat. They don't have the threat.
Yeah.
So they're trying to do what Penn State has gotten comfortable with doing this season, but they don't have the alternative. There is no alternative, and so it becomes very easy to defend.
Basketball. Interesting mix. I thought Mike and his staff did a great job of like building a team out of in terms of positional team out of the transfer portal. I'll start with the schedule. They've released the non-conference schedule, and 95% of it's out.
Yeah.
There's
Holding off on one.
There's one more. But let's start with the schedule. What's your thought just on what they've released to this point?
Yeah, I think there's a great opportunity for a team that is admittedly new, right? You're trying to meld a bunch of different pieces together all at the same time. It gives them a runway to do that, right? And so there's a lot of sugar in there. I believe as our colleague Dave Jones used to call it, right?
Right.
There's a lot of sugar in there, a lot of sweetener, but also I'm not sure that I hate to get into like net conversation at this point in the year, but I don't think it kills them based on some of the opportunities that they're going to have in the Orlando tournament, right? They are going to see good teams. All three of those games they should have top 50-ish net in every single one of those games on a neutral floor.
Right.
So, I think that it gives you an opportunity to build up some confidence, explore your rotation, see who can play, see who can't, and then, but also not totally kill yourself if they should, in fact, get to a situation where they're bubble-ish. I mean, you got to win 10 games in the Big Ten no matter what.
Right.
And then from there, you see where things fall.
Any player or players you're interested to see right out of the gate of the mix that they brought in?
I mean, this is such a cop-out, but I want to watch Ace.
Well,
I want to see Ace.
No, I've watched Ace the last 2 days. There's a good reason why you want to watch Ace.
Yeah, right. I mean, I want to see him. I want to see how his game translates to this level. I want to see Penn State shooters, right? Zach Hicks, I've heard good things about how he shoots the ball, right? There are pieces there. I don't. What's going to be interesting to me, and what I'm most fascinated to see is, okay, Ace is going to see a very different lane from what he saw in the A-10, right?
Sure.
It's not going to look the same when he gets in there. Okay. Now, does his ability to score stay consistent through that? Is he just that good? Or does he have to adjust his game a little bit and find shooters? And then does Penn State have the shooters to make those shots? Because part of the dynamic that I think exists based on the personnel that they brought in is you've got a head coach that desperately wants to build a program around defense and all of the different things that they can do, right? I mean, they're going to pressure the ball. They're going to do a bunch of different stuff. That's great. But does he have the players? Does he have the personnel that can do that and score? Or does he have scorers, right, that can't play defense as well as he's going to want to? It's going to be – I'm very, very interested to see how that kind of works itself out to where his best – right, can you have your best shooters on the floor, or are those guys that you're going to have to kind of pick and choose your spots when you get them in the game?
My good friend, it is always a pleasure. Great to have you back.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. Anytime.
Nate Bauer, the outstanding Nate Bauer from On3.com and Blue White Illustrated.